everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, where the topic is conceptual rendering. Great to have you with us. To introduce myself quickly, my name is Gemma De Silva, and I will be your moderator today. So we are live, which is particularly exciting, which means that you have the opportunity to ask questions, and we will be able to answer those certainly at the end of the webinar when we have a live Q&A, but hopefully we'll be able to get to a few questions throughout the presentation as well. So please make sure that you use the questions box, and I'll keep an eye on those. And as you can see, I am not alone. I'm joined by Joseph Kim, who is with us once again. Yay! Joseph has been on a few webinars with us now, so great to have you back, Joseph.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. I will hand over to you so that you can introduce yourself, and then yeah, we can get started and get into the presentation. So yeah, thank you once again for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So as people start to join, I guess I'll get things kicked off and started. Hopefully you guys could see me and hear me all that well. And so today's topic is conceptual rendering, and I kind of subtitled it as a rendering as a design tool. So we're going to talk about a method to help you doing designs with renderings. So first off, let me go to the next slide. So I want to kick it off with a question, and I understand people may join a bit later, but I wanted Gemma to help out doing some sort of poll here. So the first question is, how's your SketchUp skills, is what I wanted to ask. So if you guys could go to the poll section and then click on whatever that is relevant for you, that would be great, so that I get sense of what kind of crowd that we are dealing with. And whilst you guys are filling that out, let me go ahead and just introduce myself with a picture of me here. So my name is Joseph Kim. I am a project manager at MJM Architects, and I function as an architectural designer, and I'm not allowed to say I'm an architect because I'm not certified yet. So, you know, I'm working towards that goal right now, but I function pretty much do similar things as what architects would do. And I'm always looking to share some of the things that I've learned, picked up on the road with other people, so that we can all benefit from what I have learned. So with that, do we have conclusion on the poll?
We do. So I'll share the results now. You can see, yeah, most people are intermediate or beginners. So we've got a few experts in the house as well.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so well, welcome everyone who's beginner and intermediate, and some experts. That's great to hear. The second question, obviously I'm requesting a lot of audience participation here, but the second question is, what is your occupation? Or, you know, are you an architect of some sort, interior designer, CGI artist, like professional visualization people? I bet you guys are much better than I am in rendering, but hopefully I'm dealing with some people who are similar to who I am. And whilst you guys are working on that poll, let me go ahead and move on to the next slide. Here is a short video that I had made for the 3D Basecamp that I just attended very recently. So this is my YouTube channel, actually.
Oh, Joseph, we're not seeing your screen at the moment, so you might just need to screen share once again.
Sure. Do I have to share again?
Yeah, I think so. Click that play button at the top.
Play button on the top. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, just need to switch to presenter mode and.
Sure. Sharing. I think as it flips to the poll mode, it just does.
Kicks you out, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's work it out. Okay, let me move back. So that was the question. And then here is the little video. So I imagine you guys to be this kind of atmosphere, since you know, I can't really see any of you who's watching this session. So hopefully, you know, you guys are also smiling and waving as I do the presentation. Do we have a result on the polls?
Yeah, let me share that now. So the majority of your audience are architects, a few interior designers, yeah, a few CGI artists as well.
Great.
So yeah, mainly architects.
Yep, awesome. Yeah, so okay, back on the screen. Okay, good. It's good that I have fellow architect folks so that I can talk about the things that I do every day. Interior designer are definitely relevant. Those experts of professional CGI artists. Hopefully you get to understand what we do on the architect side or interior designer side. So let me go through the rest of, I guess, the third question I wanted to ask is, are you subscribed to my channel? And this was just kind of joke here. So please do subscribe to my channel. The actual question that I wanted to ask was, how often do you render? So I wanted to see, you know, what your daily workflow is like. You know, if you do a lot of rendering daily, once a week, are you an in-house expert that you just do it daily and every hour? You're bleeding renderings out of you, then that's what I would like to know.
All right, and most people have voted, so let's have a look. Yeah, a bit of a split, but mainly once a week, once a month, and a few dailies as well.
Oh, that's a good spread. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's kick off to the main screen here now that I have a better understanding of what the crowd is. Thank you so much for all of those polls. Yeah, so I currently do about once a week, maybe once a month is my personal spread of rendering occasions. I used to do almost daily, but it obviously fluctuates depending on the task and the project and type of things that you do daily. But I do a lot of designs and construction drawing as well. So rendering is whenever I'm doing conceptual stage or schematic design phase. So I wanted to kind of ask, or I guess put this question in your head. What is conceptual rendering? We understand what concept is, conceptual is, and also we understand what rendering is, or we may have a general understanding of what the rendering is, but what is a conceptual rendering? And this is sort of a style, if you may, or workflow that I kind of came up. And obviously it existed before, but I'm just kind of calling it that and then just kind of perhaps claiming it and saying, well, this is something that I like to do, and this is what I kind of named it as. So I've been using this concept or style or workflow since out of school, ever since I got out of school, so 2012. So that kind of gives away my age in a way. But let's look at a couple of thoughts here. So, you know, we rely on daily, or I personally do some sketches, and some of you may also do as well, but in sort of a primitive format, sketches always have been in a way to communicate your own designs to other people. It may be your coworker, it may be your client. You may be sketching away just to jot down your thoughts onto a physical medium. So that's something that we have done for a design communication tool. And we also have used different type of diagrams, cute little diagrams that you learn to do in school, and just did something like this to share some of your thoughts. And then also you even made physical models. It may be conceptual or it may be a finished product, but that is to just have it as a physical medium so that you can kind of show what you're thinking of the thoughts and then working out different spaces and such. So those are the things that we have done before. However, you had to spend a lot of time making, you know, the stairs are correct or all the space are correctly designed, and you know, there's a lot of money that you have to spend in order to buy the material, and they just kind of sometimes break as you take it to a place that you need to prison at. So it's somewhat troublesome in a way, and I'm just showing you the pictures of the things that I've done in school. And there's a reason why I only done it in school, because it was very time consuming and it's costly, and I don't know where to keep them. I don't hold them anymore. So yeah, I do miss doing those things, but it's kind of difficult to do that every day. And because of that, in my student days, I was able to do some rendering introduction. And I remember on this specific rendering, I just hit the render button and then went to bed and just wake up in the morning, and it turns out to be something that I didn't expect. So you have to hit the render button and then expect the results in hours after that again. So it is a sort of a convoluted stage it was at before. But nowadays, the rendering is a lot quicker. So that's what we are about to utilize with the power of Enscape. And the next slide is sort of a semi-rendering, I would say. It is rendered, but it is meant to show you some information of what are the things. And so it is just also another methods in design communication, what you're thinking of onto a medium, so that you can do presentations and discussions with your colleagues and clients. And I just pulled out this meme just so that I can kind of make you laugh a bit. But what part of this drawing do you not understand? Sometimes drawings could be complex. I would say not sometimes. It is most often client don't even bother reading or looking at the drawing because it is just way too complex. It's not something they do day to day. Whereas us architect-like people, we draw, we understand every single line very, very well. So if you look at a simple residential drawing like this, it may take a few moments for us to understand what kind of thing we are looking at. And I'm explaining it is residential, it is sort of the simple plan, but still you got to go through every single letters in here to understand what is going on. And for a client who's building this building or building their dream home for the first time, or probably they'll do this once in their life and they don't understand drawings as well as we do. So it's quite important that we have a way to communicate things easier to the client. And hopefully, in a way, the conceptual rendering could answer that. And I would consider this as a version of it where things become a bit 3D and things are clearer. Now you can clearly call out where the kitchen is, the dining is, the living area, the relationship with the library on the front. You can start to have that kind of conversation with your clients. So it's needless to say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you just got to show it in some way. And in a digital era where you do a lot of renderings and you do a lot of computer generated images or 3D modeling, how do we go back to the thought of sketches or more primitive format where it is a bit loose, but clearly speak about your ideas and jot it down on a paper or medium and talk to other people? So these are a couple of examples of conceptual renderings that I've done over the years, and I just wanted to kind of go over some of them so that you get to see kind of stylistic choice, and then also type of material, the lighting, and specific model components that I use inside of the models. So just as I flip through, just make note of what kind of stylistic choice that I'm making on all of these images. So the first thing that you will see is sort of the swooping curves on the ceiling, the roof area. And obviously I wanted to draw your eyes onto that rather than anything else. And same concept here, we're looking up and looking at the ceiling, the skylight, and things are dangling or hanging. We are not sure how to hang them exactly, but we figured something will be there. But we are sure that it will be sort of a wood ceiling finish to accommodate that, and some, I don't know, motifs that are on the bulkhead. So again, sort of the commercial type of setup here. We got escalator, so you can clearly understand that. And you might have spotted this person that is on top of the escalator. But until I have pointed that out, that really didn't catch your eye. You were looking at the ceiling. On this one here is sort of the swooping shapes down the mall, and you perhaps see these different type of shapes and how they are related to the rest of the storefronts. You might have noticed the tree, the people, but they're not the main focus. Similar concept here in a commercial retail setup. We got different type of shelving, the wire, black wire shelving system, perhaps the second floor with the wood handrails and balusters, stairs, perhaps not the people, right? Excuse me. And then we've got another commercial setup, but we got trees, greens, blocky buildings, some water, planters, and chairs. But again, people are not focused, but we want them in there because you want to gauge the scale of the place and also sort of the busyness of the space, because you want to communicate that in a retail or commercial environment. But then people are drawn to people. If once we start to see faces, we are immediately drawn to them. Therefore, we want to keep them as a silhouette, sort of the white kind of blend in background or outlines, so that you're not drawn to focus onto them. We can talk about the architecture, designs. And another way to kind of draw your focus on is to color a certain area. So I wanted to talk about the sun bath area in a tiny little space, and I can just color that space so that your attention is just solely drawn onto that specific area. Again, similar play here where the facade is colored, and it's clear that we're trying to talk about the material of the facade, specifically onto this wood volume. I'm not trying to work out the exact details of the wall and the flashing details and what the section is. I'm talking about the overall architecture, overall shape and form of the space. All the things that you were taught in school. Again, another sort of the color play here. I'm trying to draw your attention to the middle of the image, obviously, and the spiral staircase that is leading up to the second floor. And I've just kind of wiped out the color off of elsewhere just to draw your eyes towards there. And this is the same space. And again, I'm trying to avoid very dark spaces, which is quite typical for retail and commercial environment, because anything dark seems or is understood as a dark and dingy area, not necessarily where people want to be. So we want to talk about, you know, light and clean and bright areas for a lot of these commercial shopping mall setups. So again, your image needs to convey that, and these are sort of the stylistic choices, how airy, open it is. And again, I'm trying to draw your eye towards the ceiling or the things that are hanging up on the above, the yellow hanging things, and then perhaps the shadow that's been casted by it. So conceptual rendering must be not realistic perhaps, but it is distraction free, and you need to focus on design when you make those kind of models and the images. And essentially an opposite of what this image is. The first thing that your eyes have landed on is perhaps the apple or the sticker that is on it. I want to talk about my architecture. I want to talk about my design. I want to talk about my space, not the sticker or the realistic looking apple. So I wanted to sum it up and say conceptual rendering is a work in progress. It must be not destructive to your overall design workflow. And then also it informs your design and spatial quality to others that are coworkers and the clients of yours. And then you need to minimize unnecessary details that you're going to spend extra time on working and then reverting back and making changes, so that you just need to focus on the topic whenever you prepare these sort of models and the renderings. So it needs to be quick and easy to generate, meaning the model that you've been working on 5 minutes before the presentation, you can just hit render button and then expect the images to look and feel like the thing that you wanted to convey. So you need to focus on that area. And obviously I'm going to use the combination with SketchUp and Enscape to do that at this time. So as we go on to the second, I guess the next section of the presentation, Gemma, do we have some questions perhaps?
We don't at the moment, but let's use that as an opportunity to remind everyone that we will take questions at the end of the webinar. So remember to pop them into the questions pane, and yeah, we'll get to those a little bit later on.
Awesome. Yep. Okay, so so I wanted to go into sort of the tips and tricks, or perhaps a method in how to do conceptual rendering now that we have taken a look at a couple of examples and things that I have done so far. Obviously, this concept is continuously evolving, and it's sort of I have perfected, or I guess I have tried different things over the years. So I just kind of fell out whatever that works and what doesn't. And I'm about to just kind of go through a lot of shortcuts and then extensions and the methods that I use inside of SketchUp first, to just kind of tell you about how I go about doing these things in a quick and easy way, or I guess in a way that I can just continuously do that is non-destructive to my overall design workflow. Okay, so let me go ahead and come out from the PowerPoint to move into this model over here. Hopefully you are seeing my model. I understand there's a slight delay and jittering of the model, so bear with me. It's a lot more fluid on my screen, so just understand that if you were to do live presentation on having your coworker or the client beside you, then you'll be having a bit better experience than what it is sort of broadcasted to hundreds of people on webinar. So this is again sort of a commercial setup where I was showing a couple of the rendering images of. And as a quick tip here, I usually set a couple of scenes up on top so that I have a first one as a modeling view. So I always come back to this view if I need to model something. But when I go into presentation, I set up these sort of series of scenes so that I can quickly flip through them to see and show people what kind of area of interest they are there. So going back to the aerial view, I can just kind of show them, hey, I've got this building on this sort of pedestrian area, and then I can talk about the overall setup here, and then I can just move into this building here. Having a little bit of movement like this definitely helps in terms of explaining and understanding a space, because just seeing a 2D image, often if you just flash onto here, then you kind of lose the context. So having a bit of a movement from the aerial view down to a spot that you're about to talk about is definitely helpful for them to understand what is going on. So let me move on to the aerial view, zooming into this spot where I'm trying to talk about the spiral staircase. And then I can also just snap back onto this view over here so that we see everything much wider. By the way, if you have the default view on SketchUp, you can hit Z or Z for those of you who are across the pond. And then you'll see the field of view is shown on the bottom right-hand corner, 35 degrees. At this point, you can hit 60 DEG enter, and that will just sort of widen the view for you. And often this is much better in terms of navigation and showing clients the context of the things that you are looking at. And it's quite helpful for your renderings too. So that's what I pretty much have done over here on this interior view here. And then I have to go through a couple of shortcuts that I'm gonna use. But first thing is export and 2D graphic, and I have designated Control 2 and then Control 3 for the 3D model export, just so that I can export things very quickly. And once you do that, you get this pop-up window. Make sure you click on the options on the image saving, and 3000 pixel is what I usually put down as, so that I have a good amount of pixels to work with. And then I just save it on the desktop so that I can just get it easily later. And then I'll just say color, because this is a color version of the export that I'm about to make. How are we doing on time, Gemma?
We have another 30 minutes or so. So
okay,
doing good.
Good. All right, and then I wanna change the view a little bit. So if we go to view face style, I also have designated a shortcut for this, hidden line, which in SketchUp's terms is a black and white model. It's kind of a little different from what the monochrome means, but because of that, I just designated M for monochrome, Alt M, and then wireframe is Alt W, and then shaded with texture is Alt S. So I can hit Alt M, for example, and then change this to black and white or the outline version of this model. And then I can do Control 2 to export as an image. And in this case, I'm gonna go back out onto desktop, and then this time I'm gonna call it outline and then export. And the speed is a key here. So I'm doing things a bit fast, and if you have questions on shortcuts and things that I've done too fast, just leave it down and I'll try and answer those. And on Photoshop, I can certainly just get this file and then drop it on here, and then it'll open up the image here. And then at this point, I can go to outline and then drop it again on top, and then they'll just line it up just like that, and then bring up masking. So you get a mask on top, and then you can just drop the opacity of the mask so that you start to get slight colorization of the view that you have. And then if this is too much, I can bring up the opacity a bit more, and then I can start to erase an area that is in the center. So something like that. Make sure to change your brush size and the hardness so that you have something soft. And then I can just basically erase away an area that I would like you to focus on. And basically, if I export that as a JPEG, if I were to go tab once to change the file type as JPEG, and then go shift tab again to go up, and then this is my view. View 1, enter. And then I may get a slight, this window here, okay that. And now that I have saved, I would say what I would consider is a conceptual rendering image that I can now share with my colleague and client without touching any sort of rendering really, but just natively out of SketchUp. So yeah, that was just a short way of showing how to do sort of the colorization method that I was showing earlier. And then now we can move on to the next bit. First of all, when you do a lot of commercial designs like this, where you have curtain walls or this sort of funky free-form roof shape, often if you don't have these mullions that are modeled in there, the rendering will not show the edges that are drawn in there. So let me go ahead and actually remove this so I can tell you what I'm about to show you. So if they just exist as edges like this or lines like this, the rendering does not show, including a lot of rendering engines such as Enscape. So the method to create mullion on here quite easily is to just triple click on the edges that you want to turn into a mullion. And there's an extension called Lines to Tubes, and it is by a gentleman called Didier Burr, and that gives you an option on their tools, convert arcs, circles, and then here you can keep options as this, follow me on curve, yes, yes, no, and the material is left as a default, and then I'm going to set the diameter as 4 inches, and for those of you who use metrics, you can put down the number that you like, and then precision as 4, so that it creates sort of a diamond shape that is a 4-sided frame, essentially. And if I hit OK, and then this frame gets created, so when you come out of it, you essentially get this mullion that gets easily created so that it shows up on your rendering. And then perhaps, can we go through a couple of questions if we have any, Gemma?
Sure, yeah, there was one asking about the post-processing of the renderings, whether you are using anything or whether they're coming straight out of Enscape. That was when you were showing the renderings earlier on.
Right. Basically, some of them may have received saturation and the brightness changes, but I don't do a heavy post-processing other than, again, what you have just seen where I do a bit of masking on top just to bring out the punch of a color. Or also, when you do renderings, for example, on a big building like this, if I did not have skylight, a lot of areas inside become very dark and hard to see. And if that ever happens, then I also just export this 2D graphics out of SketchUp and then superimpose it, and so that I can show basically the SketchUp model on top of my rendering so that I can show inside of the building even without placing any of the lights. So that's something, the extent of post-processing that I will go into, but I don't do a lot of material finicking and also shadow changing as far as the post-processing goes, because it's just gotta be easy and quick.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joseph.
Yep. Let me go through a couple of more slides that I have, or the things that I want to talk about. So when we come to sort of a rendering in general, or I guess the modeling in general inside of SketchUp, we want to make sure our geometry and all the edges are cleaned up and to a most optimal state. So here is an example. I've got this sort of, I guess, planter and then landscape area that I have kind of made some mistakes on, where a lot of things are divided. I can go through with the eraser tool to just kind of go over them and then clean them up. But if you have hundreds and a lot more of these, then they are difficult to go through. So a couple of extensions that you can use is one from TomTom, and if you go to the extensions, once you install cleanup, and you'll have an option merge faces, so you can select all of the ones that you want to merge face with, and then either hit this, where I have a shortcut of Shift W on your keyboard, and once I do that, then it will start to clean up those edges that are dividing the faces with. And then the second one is the same thing from, from the same person, TomTom, and then Edge Tools. And then I can erase, it's called Edge Tools, and the function is erase straight curves. And then this time the shortcut is Shift E. So actually E is right next to W. So what I do is Shift W and then Shift E after that to erase all those stray edges. And then the bonus point here is, again, move to the next key, which is a Shift R, which is a Freddo's remove lonely vertices tool. And once I do the this tool, then the lonely vertices or the division between the edges become deleted. So if you were to follow on the edges like this, drew a couple of times over and over, and you see there's an endpoint that lies in the middle of the edge. So once you select all Shift R, then it's going to go ahead and clean up that lonely vertices for you. So that is a quick way of cleaning things up. So there you go. And then the next method in sort of manipulating your model with a lot of component is when you go here on this model, I've placed different patio furniture down here. So what you can do is first I can change the color of the parasol that's here. So let's go to this color perhaps. And then if I were to go ahead and color this, you see how I have colored this one and none of them have changed. However, if I go to TomTom's material tools, or if I have that, material replacer installed, then I can have this as a Control B. So if I were to hit, Control B, and then I can replace this material, click, and then with this, click. Then notice how I have replaced all of those colors with this color. I can do the same for perhaps the chair color if I wanted to. So that becomes really easy to kind of manipulate and merge different type of materials that you are working with visually, not necessarily through the list of materials, because you could end up with hundreds and thousands of materials that are used for your model. So let me go back, and here again, another methods to replace the component is called Component Replacer by TomTom again. And then once you click that or activate that, and I actually have a shortcut of Shift V for that one. And what happens is, sorry, I just clicked on that one. So Shift V, if I were to select all of this by selection toy from another extension as well. So if I can select all the same component instances, select active means it just selects everything that is within my boundary box. And then if I hit Shift V to Component Replacer and then click on this component to source this one, then it will go ahead and replace all of those and then actually respect the orientation of all of those models. And you might have noticed that the overall size actually shrunk because this is slightly bigger boundary box than this one. So if you want to make sure, oh, actually it didn't. So the chairs and table actually shrunk a bit, but the overall umbrella size stayed the same. But there is a modifier key Control to disable scale to fit. So you can actually still respect the orientation of the components, but still have everything going in as a scale of 1. So you can easily modify all of these and then have them all replicated. And then another tool I wanted to show you was once you are in a lot of things that are spread across like this, such as planter or furnitures like this, for you to kind of randomize. And there is a tool called Chris Fuller Tools Random Rotate Multiple. So if you were to go under extensions, you may find that once you have that installed. And then here, I can do scale and rotate randomly. And in this case, I'm not trying to scale because I want all the furniture to be exactly same size, but I want them to be rotated. So I can do minimum rotation is 0 and the max rotation is 360. And then they'll start to spin off, but it will actually do it off of a component origin. So this is not a good example. Let me actually show you on this one. So there is a Enscape asset that I have modeled here on top of this planter, and let me just run Enscape here, and that's going to take a few moments. So why don't we answer some questions, Gemma?
Sure, yeah, we have one here that we can answer at this stage. So Someone was just asking if you use any other softwares to create your designs, or do you just use SketchUp?
I personally use both SketchUp and Revit to create my designs, but at the conceptual stage, I tend to stay at SketchUp because it is a bit freer in terms of modeling techniques. So that's what I tend to use.
Fantastic, thank you. That's all we have at the moment, but yeah, just another reminder, send in your questions. We'll have more time at the end for some Q&A.
Okay. Yep, and so let me just snap the Enscape screen onto the right so you guys could see what I am modeling, and let me synchronize the view so you guys could also see as I just kind of go through this view over here. So it is all real time and showing what I am modeling. Let me just change the visual style so you guys could see all the outlines as well. So here, as I go through this, I can basically do the copy move or move copy method, which is array method inside of SketchUp, and then just park the next one here and then do 10x enter. And then that will basically array the asset X amount of time like that. And then I also want to select all of them again, and then now array it this way, perhaps along the green axis, and then repeat 4 times. And I've got to clean up because they now have fallen off the edge. So notice I'm just loosely controlling this, but I'm trying to place these vegetation on top of the planter. But you might have noticed, although you would not really do this in real practice, have to have like a dune-like stuff on top of your planter. But yeah, in this case, I have that. Therefore, the plants are actually getting embedded inside of this thing. So let's go ahead and pull them out. And I'm about to use an extension from, let's snap onto blue axis. And then type in a foot. That's okay. Let's do 5 foot just so that we can be really on top. There you go. And then I can delete that one over there floating about. And now I'm about to use another extension from TomTom called Ray Tracer. So let me go ahead and select all of these things and then Ray Tracer. And then I can drop all of them by drop components. And then it's just going to hit the bottom of the component and then just lay it nicely on top of this curved surface. Or you can also go back and then select all of those again and then drop by bounds. So drop components by bounds. That means that it's going to respect the overall boundary line of the thing so that it starts to kind of slant to the side, if you will. I don't think that's the look that I'm going for, but I'm gonna just leave it like that. And then, actually, sorry, I'm gonna go ahead and actually drop them correctly. So Ray Tracer, drop components, and then we're gonna use that Chris Fulmer's tool again, and then scale and rotate randomly. And in this case, I'm gonna leave the scale factor because I want the planters to be growing in different size, and then rotation 360, enter. And then you see how the planter now have kind of rotated and grown in different sizes. Obviously, you probably don't want that much of a variation, but you can certainly control that by inputting different factors. And another thing that I wanted to mention whilst we were using the different patio furniture is that there is a random select tool. So you can select all here and then go into extensions and then random select. I can select 50% of them so that I can color them differently or perhaps even modify to a different furniture as I was showing with the component replacer. Sorry. Okay. So notice how I have selected half of them and then I have it different colors. So all of them are white right now in terms of the umbrella color. And then I can go to random select 50% and then come up with a different color so that I can randomly select 50% of them and then color differently so that you can have a different type of spread of patterns. Okay, and then let me go into a couple of Enscape specific tricks here. So only thing that I will really touch on is the overall visual style of the Enscape. So as I kind of swim around, one of the things that I want to mention is I do live presentation with Enscape with my client because it is so efficient. I can just show it like this and have a soft and slow movement in the scene. So they have a much better understanding of what the space is. But I want to make sure I pick the right visual style. So I tend to save those as a preset. But when you are starting fresh, you will have this custom preset. And then basically, I'm just going to reset it so that we all start from the same place. And this is what you will have out of the box. And then I can change the rendering quality to medium so that my machine runs a little bit faster. And in some cases, you just saw, you can actually make your model slightly brighter because it's not doing as much shadow calculation. And then the first thing I do again is to increase the outlines. I really like this outline look. Notice how I go from 0 where the defined surfaces like this, where the corner is white or the white silhouettes of the people, it's not as defined. So it starts to overlap really heavily and you're not really sure where the boundary of those faces are. Whereas if you were to increase the outline value, it starts to become very visible, especially on that escalator type of thing. So I like having that, and it is sort of respective of what the style of SketchUp is, because essentially SketchUp is outline model. So I like that look, and I usually just put down about 20 to 30% even on the outlines. And then the next section I click on is output, and I usually save it as a JPEG, so it is a quick and easy. And for that goal, I set the default folder to the desktop so that I can pick it up easy, and also automatic naming checked up so that I don't have to decide on a very unique name of the views every time I decide to screenshot and save or render out a view from Enscape. And then I utilize a shortcut of Shift F11, which is stated here on top of the screen. And so once I arrive at a spot that I feel, okay, I want to talk about this scene right here, Shift F11, and then that is going to just render away for me. And then I'm going to move away a little bit and then perhaps look at it from a different angle, Shift F11, so that I can quickly do that in a quick succession. And then let me mention a few more things on visual style. If we go to the image section, image tab here, I usually bring up the vignette value. That actually helps to bring your focus down into the middle. You'll see as I increase this value, the sides of the screen becomes darker so that it kind of focuses you into the middle, but it obviously makes the image appear quite dark. So I usually park at somewhere around 50% so that I have a little bit of darkness on the edges, but not necessarily making your image look too dark. And then atmosphere, I bring down the wind intensity. Typically, Enscape has this on by default, and I have a one dancing tree over here. You see how that palm tree is moving around, and also the grass that I have will dance around as well. By the way, once you designate a keyword inside of SketchUp, so for example, when you have a material having a name, grass in the middle of the name, then it will appear as an actual grass inside of your Enscape screen. And same thing for the water. If you have the water and then if it has a name of water, then they will appear as water. I'm not sure why that one isn't actually. Anyways, yeah, so that I don't want the waters to be moving so much or the trees and grass to be dancing around so much, so I bring that down. Okay. And then also in terms of the sky, let me just drop onto the floor so I can see this area easily. And in terms of the sky, I don't want to see too much of a crowd, clouds up there. So I bring down the density and these values here. I may have a bit of variety just so that I have some clouds shown, but I often just bring it down so that they all just appear clear sky. And then another thing that I do on the atmosphere, is to bring down sun brightness. Notice how the shadow line is very dark and it is very defined. So I tend to bring this down to almost 5% or even less, just so that I have much better shadow line. It is not as defined, but it is there. And I think the time of the day is sort of a dusk, so it's starting to show as sort of a blue here. But let me go back to this settings here. So you see how I have the sun brightness as 5%. So things are showing up here, sky. I can just bring that down here. So those are the couple of visual styles that I use inside of Enscape. I think we are good to answer some questions and wrap up the session. What do you think, Gemma?
Yeah, I think that would be good. Let's have a look here. Did you mention the 2D outline people that the extension that you use?
I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. So all of these 2D people inside of SketchUp, I actually have them. So basically, I pulled out one component that I've made and then just put them into my scene. So I left them on the 3D warehouse. So if you were to search for white outline 2D people, mainly because I don't know how to spell silhouette, but if you search that, then you'll be able to find it and download it for yourselves.
Nice, thank you so much. Okay, so we have a few questions here. Do you model site context or landscape in SketchUp? And if so, do you use a plugin for that?
Yes, so essentially what I was just doing there. I have a couple of, I guess, images that I found over the years, and I just saved it on and compiled them so that I can just place them into my model like this. Let me show you. So, they just kind of show up like that. Enscape does have a site context tool, but they all appear as white, and often that's not exactly the look that you're looking for. So depending on what you want, you may just take the Google image or the map data and then just superimpose it onto plan and then have a couple of these buildings literally just made for yourself. You can also rely on as a white blocks made inside of SketchUp or rely on Enscape's site context tool as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Can you save the sun direction in Enscape?
Oh, well, I would actually rely on SketchUp sun direction because it does have an excellent shadow tool. I dare not to turn it on ever in front of client or your coworker, because if I turn that on right now, my machine's just gonna just come to a halt. Whereas Enscape actually interprets that data and then show it correctly to you. So whilst I have just kind of minimized the shadow line, but you can kind of see it here. So if I were to go ahead and change that, you see how that starts to change. So that's how I would manage. And if you want to have a night scene, then I would actually put it to a nighttime and then save the scene. And then if you want to change it to afternoon, then have another scene saved with that shadow time or sun time or time of the day, sorry, so that you show the shadow correctly. You can do it inside of Enscape by holding down Shift key and then using the right mouse button to scroll left and right like that. But although the time of the day is shown, I think the integration that was done on the SketchUp side is a bit more, I would say, precise, as well as you can change time of the day of the year as well. So it's, I think, better method in controlling it.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Someone was asking if once you have completed your model, which I'm guessing they mean in SketchUp, does it import well into Revit?
Into Revit, oh, that's a whole another, I guess, webinar, if you will. The simple answer is no, it doesn't. They don't like to talk to each other. So you're going to have to make them talk, and that talking takes time and I would say some headache, is to lightly put it.
Well, maybe we can do a webinar on that one day.
Right.
And then I think this is the last question at the moment. Do you add sound to your environments, like background street sound?
That's a good thought because Enscape does allow you to do that. I personally do not, just because it solely relies on Enscape's capabilities to do so. And my approach, and sometimes other people feel this other way, especially on people who's developing things on the Enscape side. But I feel like it's best to rely on SketchUp's or even Revit, but for SketchUp's native methods first before going on to Enscape. Enscape is just another way to just finalize your model, and the sound only is available on Enscape side. So I feel like that doesn't translate so well in terms of your modeling technique inside of SketchUp. But yeah, the short answer is no, I don't. And if I ever do, then I think it will just be a bit too convoluted for my liking, because I want to make sure my model's clean, and it's just, even people without Enscape can open up my SketchUp model and still work on it. And that is going to all render fine in Enscape at the end of the day. So I want to make sure that sort of logic and method is in place.
Brilliant, thank you. And someone from the audience has got back to us on the SketchUp and Revit workflow, and someone has said Evolve Lab Helix have bi-directional SketchUp and Revit that's worth checking out. So thanks for the for the tip there.
Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, they are great. They are one of the easiest way to overcome that, and I do recommend them as well.
Nice. Okay, I think we have time for one more. We've had a couple more come in. To arrange the people in the renderings, did you use a scatter tool inside of Enscape, or are you scattering inside of SketchUp?
Oh, scatter inside of SketchUp is what you will do, but I personally just literally plunk them and then just move them across the model as I see fit. So for example, I'll have perhaps about this much people that comes in from the component that I made, and then I'll just move copy and then have them over here. And if the area in the middle needs to be empty, I just move them across, so that it's just a quick way of controlling them. And then if they're all sitting on some sort of hill, and again, I may just move them up and then use the ray trace tool that I just used to just drop them onto a surface. Right now it's got second floor. Some of them may be ending up on top of the roof. But yeah, that's what I would do. Fantastic.
Thank you so much for explaining that. Love seeing it live as well. It's really handy.
People going up on top of the roof.
Yeah, wouldn't recommend it, but yeah. Great. Okay, well, yeah, we have reached the end of the webinar. We have no more questions, so I think time to wrap it up. And Joseph, thank you so much for a really great presentation. lots of tips, and I hope the audience, I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Thank you for joining us. Just a quick note, the webinar was recorded. We'll get that out to you fairly soon. And there will also be a short survey that will pop up when you leave the webinar. And as always, we would really appreciate your feedback. So if you could take a moment to fill that in, we'd very much appreciate it. So yeah, keep an eye out for the follow-up email. I'll just have a couple of helpful resources, a link to Joseph's channel as well. I'll pop that into the chat. But yeah, I think we'll wrap things up. Thank you once again, Joseph. And
Thank you.
yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and see you on another webinar soon. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.